Alright, in this video, I want to talk about the kingdoms from Daniel chapter 2, Daniel chapter 7, and Revelation chapter 13, but mainly from Revelation chapter 17. Now, I'm using this picture here as an illustration. I'm not going to get into what it's saying down here at the bottom. I'm not going to agree or disagree with what is written down here at the bottom. What I'm going to do is actually share with you a point of view that I was just looking at from YouTube user Antichrist45. And it was kind of interesting. So I'm going to go over his point of view and show you how it fits and how it doesn't fit. And you decide for yourself what is what. Because the conclusion I came to here with the feet of iron and clay is that Rome is going to be mingled with God's people. Israel is the clay, and they are mirely baked clay as described in Daniel chapter 2. But let's see how this fits to what this fellow was saying. He starts off here in Revelation chapter 17, and he's talking about the beast that the woman sits on. And it says here in verse 9, "And here is the mind which hath wisdom. 7 heads are 7 mountains, on which the woman sitteth. And there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, one is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast." So, looking here, we see that the 7 mountains are 7 kingdoms. They are 7 kings. And from John's perspective, he says 5 have fallen, one is, another is to come, and when he does, it's for a short space. Right? So let's go back to this illustration here and apply what this fellow was saying. He was going to Daniel chapter 7 because he knows that this description here is talking about Revelation chapter 13, the beast that is made up of a lion, a leopard, and a bear. That's obviously a depiction of Daniel chapter 7 where we read about a lion, a leopard, and a bear. And then in beast that's not described as any animal, and that's why it's usually depicted as some kind of dragon dinosaur, as you can see right here. Now, how he was looking at this was that the lion is Egypt, and I'm going with it. A lion representing the sun, Egypt worshiping the sun, and Horus and what have you, and their wings were plucked, right? But they're still existing. It's like, okay, let's go with that. Then he was saying the bear. He's saying the bear is Assyria. And I was like, okay, let's go with that. The bear is told to rise up and eat much flesh. Assyria did destroy the 10 tribes of Israel before Judah was actually destroyed by Babylon. So, okay, maybe that's part of the ribs that are eaten up, right? He has 3 ribs in his mouth. Maybe that has to do with part of that, and being raised up on one side. You can see if you look at the kingdom of Assyria, it's kind of funneled where it has a large portion of its kingdom north of Israel, going over into modern day Iraq and even into Iran. And then it kind of slithers across the coast of Israel and has a little bit of territory over down in Egypt. So you could see, oh, it's lofted up to one side. Okay, okay, let's go with it. Now, this is where it gets interesting. He was saying this four-headed beast here is the statue. And I was like, all right, well, let's check that out. So one head would be Babylon. The second head would be Medo-Persia. The third head would be Greece. The fourth head would be Rome. And we see that this is all one kingdom in the statue here, right? They make up one statue, and they are all four different kingdoms. So that makes some sense. And it makes sense that, this is an animal that is yellow, white, and black, depicting different nations here. I was like, okay, that's interesting. So perhaps this final kingdom is this one kind of brought back, because the body of the beast in Revelation chapter 13 is a leopard, right? Its main body, the head would be Egypt, and it's moving around is Assyria, according to this, right? Because its feet is as a bear. All right, so we'll take a look at that real quick. Just think about it. Babylon is in modern day Iraq. Basically, a lot of this stuff connects to the same territory, because the Persians are a little bit further east in modern day Iran, and they both conquered pretty much the same territory. And then Greece is where it gets a little different, where they come over to modern day Greece and modern day Turkey is this empire, and they conquered over here. And then the legs of iron, Rome, coming a bit further west. I hope I said west when I said Greece. I hope I didn't say east, but even further west, Rome had a big chunk of Europe and then came over and conquered all these, and ended up where it was also mixed with Israel, right? So it's fitting a little bit. But the way this person was describing it is, who would be this seventh head? As he was talking about over here, it talks about the seventh, he must continue a short space, right? So, who is this? Well, he was saying, okay, this beast that comes up for in a short space is going to go against Israel, just like all the other nations did previous before this. And it's only for a short time. Now, that cannot be pagan Rome, because how is that a short time? As you see here, it says 168 BC to 538 AD. That's about 600 years or so right there. And that's longer than Greece, which is about less than 200 years, from 331 BC to 168 BC. So how would some of these, like Babylon here, it's only like 50 years, 60 years. This one lasted longer than the first one, but that's a short space. It doesn't fit. And then if you want to go to Papal Rome, start around 538 AD until now, that's longer than all of them pretty much combined. That's not a short space. Now, how he was putting it was that this is Nazi Germany. Now, before we get into the detail, let's think about what the fellow was saying. That it came up, short space, went after Israel, dispersed, right? Fits quite a bit, right? It has a connection also to pagan Rome, people Rome, right? It's pretty much the same thing. They just changed the emperor to calling him a pope. They're both the Roman pontiff, so it's pretty much the same thing. Now, the 10 horns, I'm not seeing how that fits on this Nazi Germany. And then having one horn pop up and rip up 3 other horns. I mean, you got a little bit of connection there, as Hitler, I believe, killed off someone to get his office, and then he actually killed off the actual leader of the country to end up merging both offices into one power. I don't think there was a third one killed. So, kind of a connection there, but maybe I have to take another look at that to see if there was a third person in leadership in the government and how the German government was established and who was ruling there, to understand if that it actually possibly fits. But it doesn't seem like it actually fits, right? So it seems to fit outside of the 10 horns, right? Like, what's going on here? But hear me out on this. You come over here and it says that he continues a short space. What if that's actually the deadly wound? Because it goes on to say, and the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th and is of the 7 and goeth into perdition. So the 8th one is actually of the 7. So what if the 8th one is a revived fascist state? You following me now? And I was thinking about it because this person was now going on to say that the 8th, which is not Papal Rome here, is actually the United States, and that the United States is actually in prophecy, as it's a diverse beast that's diverse from all the ones before it. And we can see that things are going to change here. Things are already changing. We can see that things are being divided. We're getting prepared for a civil war. And there's already been talk for many years online where people have been exposing supposed plans to divide America into 10 regions. And that would mean 10 kings. Now, wouldn't it? Well, quite possibly, right? And I believe that's what's actually planned on happening, is that America is going to implode. There's talk about, there's Russian troops coming in from Canada, Chinese troops coming up and immigrating from Mexico, but they're not calling them troops. They're, just immigrants, right? But I think they're going to play part in this whole division where everything's going to get split up. And the little horn that is talked about over here in Daniel chapter 7, I believe might actually be Donald Trump, and I'll explain. Now, I was looking through this chapter to see if what he was saying could fit. And he says he had a dream, And he talked about in his dream there was 4 beasts that come up, right? He says one is like a lion. He says a second like a bear, and a third like a leopard. And what was interesting about the leopard is it says, and dominion was given to it. And I was thinking about that, and I was like, yeah, there wasn't dominion given to Egypt, right? But it was a powerful nation concerning Israel. And Assyria didn't have this dominion either, but it had great power over Israel. But then Babylon comes around, and we can read in a couple places how God gave them dominion. Daniel chapter 2, verse 37 says, Thou, O king, art a king of kings, for the God of heaven hath given thee a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven hath he given into thine hand, and hath made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold. And in Daniel chapter 4, in verse 22, it says, It is thou, O king, that art grown and become strong, for thy greatness is grown and reacheth unto heaven, and thy dominion to the end of the earth. And this is about Nebuchadnezzar's dream about this giant tree that covers the earth. And he is that tree that's given dominion over the earth. So when we see that dominion was given to it, it makes sense that you could start the the actual statue in chapter 2 right here. The 4 heads are the 4 kingdoms there, right? And then we see this 4th beast that comes up. And it talks about how it goes out and it's diverse and it starts destroying everything and conquers the whole world. I believe that's what it actually talks about after this little horn pops up. And he told the interpretation. It says here, yeah, verse 19, the 4th, it's dreadful. Teeth of iron, nails of brass, it devours and breaks in pieces and stamped and subdued with his feet, and of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, before whom 3 fell. So we see that this beast is something else. And I can explain a little bit how this can fit someone like Donald Trump. But let's look at the image here. The little horn pops up and destroys 3 kings. So I can see civil war starting here, especially come election time next year. And the whole country just gets divided as Russia, China, and others help in the destruction. So you can see there's a deadly wound, right? And what rises from the deadly wound? It's kind of a depiction of what's going to happen to the Antichrist, where first he comes across as for God's people, right? But then all of a sudden he turns on them. Well, America seems to be for God's people. Not really, but not persecuting him so much. But then a deadly wound happens. And then it comes back up. And when it starts to come back together, it probably has 10 horns. Donald Trump pushes out 3 of them who won't accept him taking over. Because in Revelation chapter 17, it talks about those 7 horns actually giving their power over to the beast. So he comes in, he gets his power, and turns the country into basically Nazi Germany. As Trump has a lot of support from the far right, the neo-Nazis, the fascists, and kind of, using the Jews to get into power. But a lot of the American Jews aren't really siding with him anymore, and he's kind of upset about that because Israel really loves him, which shows how he would be able to mix with the nation of Israel, right? And yeah, I think he will use that to fend off the Muslims for a little bit, kind of playing like he's on Israel's side, helping them build the temple. Well, they'll be building it in troublous times, like the second temple was built, but they ended up building that second temple in 52 days while dealing with opposition. So don't be surprised if that happens again. It will only take a couple months to build this temple, this third one. So it doesn't have to take that long at all. We can see it start going up today, right? And that's how we probably know we're going home pretty soon. But yeah, I mean, it seems to fit, but there's probably a little details that we just gotta check to make sure how that all fits. Like in Revelation 7, it talks about how there's 10 horns, but in Revelation chapter 7, it talks about how 3 of them are removed, right? That would mean there's 7. Well, I think in Revelation 17, those 3 are probably replaced by 3 that will actually accept the beast. Kind of like what Trump is doing with his political party, and he's setting up people who are loyal and supporting him in Senate positions and Congress positions, and he's knocking people down and setting people up, right? I kind of see all this moving towards this. We already see a move where people are actually supporting traditional Catholicism because of this strong push to the left. And the strong push to the left is just getting ridiculous, but it's just a slingshot pulling back the band, pulling us all the way back into this nonsense so that we want to go flying the other way. We want to get away from it. And you just kind of let go of the slingshot and we go flying to the far right and set up this fascist state. But in between being pulled back and going to the objective, there's going to be some chaos, right? And all of a sudden just, and there's going to be issues going on, right? And yeah, I mean, I think that covers that little hole right there. But coming back to Daniel chapter 7, I'm not sure exactly where I can say there's a hole other than we don't see this kingdom yet. It hasn't actually come together where we see this beast that's not like the others, that rises up, but is of the 7. And America is of the 7 in the sense that it's a boiling pot of all the other nations that have come together, even of their cultures. We have the pyramid on the dollar bill. We got the obelisks and the Greek and Roman structures in the government, and even the different gods and goddesses on top of the government buildings and stuff, such as the Statue of Liberty there, another pagan idol. We got all this stuff showing the connection to all these other kingdoms. And I think fascism can rise back in America. There's even this guy, Kurt Zundel, a Canadian fella who immigrated from Germany after World War II, and he talked about how America is following the steps of Germany, where they're going so far to the left that they're going to destroy the country and blame it on the Jews, and then rise up in a fascist state and then take it out on the Jews. And the woman riding the beast would be the Catholic Church. So where they have papal Rome here, no, it's not the beast itself. It's the woman riding it. And then the beast is going to use the woman, the Catholic Church, to get everybody to accept the beast and to worship it and to take the mark. And then once it actually is done with the use of the woman, as we actually read over here, that starting at verse 16, it talks about how the beast is actually going to turn on the woman and destroy her. So I think that's not just turning on Rome, and it says the city that reigneth over the kings of the earth. I think at this time, the whatever they're going to call it in the future, if it's going to be the UN or NATO or some new league of some sort, is going to be headquartered in Jerusalem, along with the Vatican, the head of the Catholic Church. So that's going to be the city that rules over the earth. But eventually, the Antichrist turns on the whole thing. Just starts killing those who won't accept him. But yeah, it makes some sense. If you see any kind of holes, point them out to me. You see some issues that pop up, bring them up, questions, because this is kind of a rough draft of this. I've already was putting together my own ideas, and then when I heard this, I'll say, hey, it kind of fits into what I was already seeing. So yeah, check the boat. Don't get in it if there's holes in it, right? Check for holes and tell me what you see. Thanks for watching and take care.